G'day, guys. Welcome to Superchargers. I'm Daniel Thomas, and on this episode, I had a chat with Danish entrepreneur, author, and high performance coach Daniel Hauge. Daniel shared some really awesome insights into how to smash goals, how to optimize time, and the things that are stopping us from perhaps reaching our true potential. We also had a bit of a chat about our experiences in the martial arts and what we've both taken from the martial arts and applied to everyday life. Enjoy this one, guys. Let's go. What's a little bit of your background? Has self-development and entrepreneurship always been something that came natural to you?
No, so actually, I was very off track in life. Very early on in life, I wasn't really going to school, and I was unfortunately involved in a little bit of crime and drug abuse and stuff like that. I was really going down a wrong path, and I realized that that was not going to be the play for me. That was not going to last long term, and the typical wake up moment where you go, okay, I either continue going this way or I turn things around 180. I experienced that. And it just seemed very clear to me that personal growth was the answer, what was the vehicle that I was gonna leverage for that. And so that started very early. And then very quickly, when I started seeing results from that, I started getting more on track, started taking my health and my productivity, and I started getting jobs and stuff like that. I wanted to kind of take what had worked for me in personal growth and put it into like little packages or whatever, kind of to remind myself, but also so that I could share to other people and say, hey, this worked for me. So I started very early in the entrepreneurship personal growth mix, but it was basically, I wouldn't call it a hobby, but it wasn't something I made a living off of for the first many, many years.
It's interesting that same I found perhaps that same engine that was possibly steering you off track when you were young. It's almost like you needed to harness that in a different way. So you had this thing fueling you and you just didn't know the best way to channel that. And as you say, went down a kind of wrong track initially. But do you think it's the same engine? It's about finding the constructive outlet for that.
Oh man, that's a pretty powerful observation. I think I am a little bit obsessive in nature. I think I'm someone that when I do something, I really, really just put my blinders on and I go all in. And so I think if I didn't have a positive vehicle, and then the opportunities in crime and whatever else it might have been, got presented to me, and that was something I could kind of pour myself into. That could absolutely be maybe the same driver that I'm now using for positive things in my life.
Yeah, we had a footballer in Australia, and he was a phenomenal. I don't know if you know Australian rules football. It's a strange game, but he was an athlete, right? And he was very successful, but he had a lot of trouble off field. And I just remember him. I remember him saying he wasn't using it as an excuse, but he said the same thing that makes him a great player is what he can't switch off the field. And of course, he was a role model to children and so on. So his behavior was, unacceptable. But just that statement, he didn't know how to switch it off. The same thing that made him a great player was what made him a great drug addict. And
Mm.
I thought that was quite a powerful statement there.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I haven't thought about it quite exactly like that. I think I will have to think about that for a few days. That's a good one. That's a good one. I think you're onto something. Absolutely.
Yeah, just the engine.
Yeah.
But from your experience helping people in coaching, what are the consistent things that seem to be getting in people's way?
Yeah, so the overall thing is just about everyone knows what they need to do. I feel as though we all know what to do to build muscle, to lose weight, to get more leads in our businesses, or to make more money at the job. We all kind of know what it is that we should be doing, but there's something kind of preventing us from doing that. And oftentimes this can be procrastination, it can be overwhelm, it can be low energy levels, it can be a bunch of things. But in general, I would say this issue between we know what we must do and we don't do it for some reason.
Yeah, it's like that inkling or that calling that just keeps like chipping away at us, and we're just it's kind of there, but we're not necessarily acting upon it. Um, but how do you suggest people listen to that, or is it more about taking action?
So what's very interesting is why we're not moving, and this can be different from person to person, but very often it's some of the same things. So when I ask people, which I do, I ask the people that I work with, but also just everyone that is in some way, shape, or form interested in working with me. I ask them things like, why do you think you procrastinate? Why do you think you're overwhelmed? Stuff like that. And so very, very often, one of the things is a lack of clarity. So you'll hear people say, I would like to lose weight, right? That's very different than saying, I would like to lose 17 pounds within 3 months by cutting down 300 calories per day. And those 300 calories I'm going to take from my dinner because right now I'm eating a little bit too big of a dinner. Same thing, and a lot of the people that come to me are oftentimes business owners, entrepreneurs, or salespeople, whatever, and so they have kind of a financial motivation. So they'll say, then I'd like to make more money. And I'll ask them, okay, cool, what does that mean? Because I could give you $1 right now, you would have more money, right? So saying that is also very different than saying, hey, I'd like to go from making this amount of money to this amount of money in this time frame. So yeah, I think the clarity part is very, very big. And then I think another thing is everyone wants to do everything very, very fast. So if you want to lose weight, perhaps you've been eating a certain way and living a certain way, exercising a certain way for 30 years. And now from tomorrow on forward, you're just going to eat half of the amount of calories that you used to do or whatever. I am way more about making changes for good more than going on these sprints. So really, yeah, I would say first get really clear on what it is that you're trying to do and how, etc. And then I would find an activity that kind of bridges the gap between where you are, where you'd like to be, what is it that you're trying to do, what's an activity that will help you make that move, and then build some kind of system around it. So instead of saying, I will exercise sometimes, maybe once in a while if I feel like it, you can say, okay, I'll go to the gym, I'll lift weights for 40 minutes on my way home from work on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And that's a system. So I think once you take away a lot of this clarity and the overwhelm and the should I do it now or should I do it tomorrow or should I do it like this? When you know exactly what it is that you need to do, how, when, and etc. I think that takes a lot of the reasons and causes of not doing the thing you're supposed to be doing away.
I love how specific it is, because you're right. It can just, if you set some goal that's kind of out of reach, it could be sort of overwhelming. But when you're so specific and you say you break it down to something simple and tangible that makes sense, I guess that can counter the overwhelm there.
Absolutely. And then I recommend starting small because it is very, very easy to scale something that is working. So if you're currently reading 3 pages of a good book every night, you could probably read four as well. You could probably read seven even. If you're already going to the gym for 40 minutes, you can probably do 45 if you wanted to. The difficult part is actually getting started, actually doing the thing. And this goes for your habits, your routines, these things that are on an ongoing basis. So actually going to the gym, building that habit, start very small so that the habit actually gets going. But it also works for a per project basis. So for example, when I wrote my book, I'm telling you, man, when you're looking at a blank, and you probably know this just as well as I do, if not even more, when you're looking at a blank something, and you should just be creative, or you should just write, or you should just, you know, take that blank piece of paper to thousands and thousands of words. That must be like the ultimate thing to procrastinate on, right? But what if you just only had to open the document? What if you only had to maybe write the title? So
Mm.
sometimes I'll do that with clients, and I used to do this a lot for myself when I started with procrastination. I would say, look, I don't need to write 2,000 words. All I need to do is write 1 page. And then I felt like, oh, okay, I still feel myself procrastinating. Okay, cool, cool, cool. All I need to do is write my title for the day or whatever. And even if that, and we got to be honest with ourselves, there's something holding me back right now. Cool, you can make it even smaller, and then once you get started, we can scale that momentum. So like I said, this goes for the routines that you're trying to put in place, but also on a per project basis. This should take care of a lot of procrastination difficulties.
The blank page is a massive one, and it's a really good example because it is just this infinite space, and it just seems that there can be no end to it. But exactly what you say, if you write a word, a sentence, suddenly that becomes a paragraph. Paragraph becomes a page. I had a day here where I was trying to write, and like I went out, and it was perfect example of like just obstacles. Like it started raining. I got soaked. I was up against a headwind, and I actually turned the bike around and was like, I'm going home. And then I was like, you know what? Just get to the cafe and just write something. And even if it's one sentence, and I got there, I was soaking wet in the cafe. It was like, but I, and that kind of, that can knock onto your whole day. If I hadn't gone to the cafe, I would have potentially beat myself up about that. And then the next, but yeah, just the fact that I just soldiered through it, and there was nothing kind of magical about it. It was just like push through the kind of resistance of it, and get there and do
Yeah.
it. So it's like compound interest in a way.
Yeah, I believe everything is momentum. Every single thing is momentum. I had a mentor who told me that the two things in life that scared him the most were one, momentum, and two, a lack of momentum. So the first one is scary in a good way because once you're in there, you're just unstoppable. You crush every target, every goal, every to-do list. Everything feels amazing, and it's easy to keep going. Just like if you're rolling a massive sphere of stone, right? Once it's going, it's easy. It can actually be difficult to stop going. That was um, but yeah, it's momentum is such a huge part of everything. And I think when we see these people that seem to be doing it all, so they're okay, so you're a huge CEO, but you're also in shape, but you're also running this charity and you're also writing a book. And it's a lot of it is they did basically what we're talking about now. They identified this is what I must do, and then they systematized the activities and they just scale that thing with the momentum from that. And so that's yeah, momentum is huge.
The system is massive. Like I've just found like actually tracking things, no matter what they are, it's like it's helped me personally just tracking stuff, because otherwise you just don't have a clear picture. I think these systems and tracking can perhaps sound a little tedious to people, especially if they're creatives or whatever. But actually, it's not until you see it, um, like tracking habits, tracking stuff. When you see it on paper, it's applying that system is where you can actually work with it. Otherwise, it's just kind of vague and floating, and you have no sense of. And I'm talking about even diet or finances or
Hmm.
whatever it may be. Just this concept of tracking stuff, taking note of it. I had a massive dietary issue, and it just went on for 2 years, and I didn't realize the core problem of it until I wrote down what I was eating in a week. Um,
Yeah, I love that. And also a lot of it is the more it's systematized, the more you have it kind of dialed in and you have it on paper, etc. The less randomness there is, but also the less decisions you have to make. And this is a beautiful thing. So I came up with a concept because I like to do a lot of martial arts. I do some boxing, some MMA and
mm,
stuff like that. And so I came up with this concept called the 100 fights. And one thing I've realized from doing fighting basically is no matter who you put in that ring, no matter how well they are or how good they are at the martial art, how strong they are, how healthy they are, whatever, no matter who you put in there, if you were to force them to fight 100 times per day, they would lose the majority of them. Maybe some would lose 30, maybe some would lose 50, some would lose 70, but no one wins 100. But the average person will fight themselves 100 times per day. So
mm.
the alarm clock rings and okay, should I snooze or should I not? Well, I probably shouldn't snooze, but I want to. Okay, I'll snooze a little bit. 5 minutes later, you have the same decision, and what should I have for breakfast? Should it be Captain Crunch or whatever, or should it happen? Should it be a good healthy meal? So before you're an hour or two into your day, you've already fought yourself like 20 times. And so first of all, you're not going to win those 20, right? Probably not. No matter who how strong your willpower is, whatever, you're going to lose some of them. But even the ones you won would have been draining your energy and your time, etc. So I like to remove the decision as much as possible. So I know when I should be going to the gym and I know what I'll be doing there and I know how hard I'll work out. I know for how long. I know what I'm doing. I have my workflow. So when I work in my business, I know this is what I do first, and this is how I do it. And I do it for this long, and then I do this, and then I do this. So I try to remove as many of those decisions as possible, so everything's just streamlined.
That's huge because decision making actually takes energy and overwhelm. So you're right. If you have that in place and you're freeing yourself up just to do the stuff as opposed to just consuming on a. And you're right. You just have all these battles all day, and if you know it's consuming of time and energy. I love, man, the martial arts. Like, have it's cliche, but how much from the martial arts have you found that you take into real life, or not real life, but take into life?
Oh man, so much. It's incredible, and I know this is like you said, it's cliche because everyone that has done it says the same thing, but it's just so true because you learn a lot of lessons. You learn a lot of lessons. First of all, if I get punched in the face, there was something somewhere in there where I made a mistake. There was something I should have done that I didn't, or maybe something I shouldn't have done that I did. There's something that where I was not sufficient and I got punched in the face. And I love that. And that's beautiful because it's the exact same thing in business and in many other arenas of life. Um, Also, there's a lot of discipline and a lot of, in martial arts, you do hard stuff, right? So, first of all, sparring is very hard, but it's also a lot of the conditioning and the training that you do for that is, if you ask me, way more hellish than going to the gym and lifting some weights. So I think doing the hard thing is something I've been getting better at after doing martial arts. I think, yeah, man, there's just so
I
many aspects of it.
I can't recommend it enough. Like I was going through a very difficult transition in my life, back in Australia, having been in Europe and stuff. And I was just in a very difficult transition, and martial arts actually just helped me focus. And I think one of the biggest lessons I got from my training for me personally was about commitment and committing to like the move, because it's, as you say, like you were saying about getting hurt. Um, the times that I went into a sparring session or whatever, the time I went in sort of half-assed, it
Mm.
was actually more likely that I'd get hurt but if I went in full wholeheartedly and committed, it still may not come off, but there was much more clarity in it. And it was often better when I just committed. So I started taking that into life, just committing to things, and also without judgment. Like, I don't have judgment of others, but I'm like, there is something to be said for committing to things. And
Absolutely.
I've just tried to apply that principle of commitment. And even if it doesn't work out, the commitment is there and it always teaches something. So that was one of the big takeaways I got.
100%. Yeah. And I love that you touched on kind of the paradox of being scared because if you're scared of going into something because you're scared it's not going to work out, or you're scared you'll look dumb, or you're scared it will hurt your ego, or whatever, if it doesn't work out, the fact that you go into it half-assed, exactly like you said, just completely, just doubles the chances or the risks, if not more, of all of that happening. And so I've seen that in just about, in many sports, but especially in fighting, like you said, if you're afraid, you might actually, get hurt more. So it's important to just see that brick wall and just run through it as fast as you can, and then yeah, it'll hurt regardless, but there's just a bigger chance of making it. And also you'll know that you did your best, and so that's good. So another thing that's very important that holds a lot of people back is, so one thing someone told me once that completely changed everything was, he said, Daniel, your environment, and environment is not just my physical environment or who I'm hanging around. In this point here, it's everything. It's, are you hungry? Are you tired? How's your desk cluttered? So everything, basically your circumstances around you, mentally, physically, emotionally, etc. Your environment basically controls you,
Mm.
but the beauty is you control your environment. So if you're extremely hungry, let's imagine you've had low blood sugar for an entire day and you go to a candy aisle in the grocery store. I mean, sure, you can decide not to buy anything, but you probably will. But you decide if you're going to the candy aisle while, having low blood sugar. You could have even just made sure that you didn't have low blood sugar. So anyway, what I'm saying is it's difficult to be your best self, whether you're an entrepreneur, you're a salesperson, or whatever it is you do for work. It's difficult to be your best self if you are completely drained mentally, physically, emotionally, if you're not working, on the right things in the right way, etc. But much of that, fortunately, you control. So I think the point I'm trying to make is I think a lot of what we see today in like the motivation world where it's like, yes, you're tired, but you should just do it anyway. And yes, you don't want to do it, but you should just, there's some truth to some of that. But I think that's kind of a symptom treatment approach where it's like, okay, so you're extremely fatigued, you have no energy, you're brain fog, you're overwhelmed, you're stressed, you're burned out, you are not sure what to do, but you should still perform. How about just setting yourself up in a way where performance is almost inevitable? How about we look at the cause instead of um, the symptom, which is everyone is stressed and burned out and have low energy. So that's something I do a lot with the people that I work with, the clients. It is we look at their energy levels, sorry, emotionally, physically, mentally, etc. We remove distractions. We do all of that so that high performance or doing your best work or being your best version of yourself is kind of the default. It's kind of the thing that will happen on its own almost. That's something I think we should see if we can shift a little bit in our current culture.
Hope you're enjoying the show. Quick shout out to Modern Mammals. These guys make a shampoo alternative for men. So if you're a dude out there and you want a product that leaves your hair feeling awesome, I can't recommend these guys enough. If you use the code 10DThomas, you get a 10% discount. And for any orders over $50, shipping worldwide is free. Back to the show. For sure. I mean, there's just endless amounts of distraction in our current culture. Um, for someone like me who it frustrates me a little bit. I jump around from projects. I sort of dart around. I don't know if you know the kind of hummingbird woodpecker thing where there's people who sort of just get a task, they chip away at it and they finish it. And then there's other people who jump around. I jump around and it kind of frustrates me because it can get a bit overwhelming when there's 5 or 6 things. And I'm like, why don't you just finish the thing that you're on? But I also like them working in conjunction. And I'm just somebody that needs like variety of space and variety of different projects. And uh, when I was working in a corporate environment, I didn't find it conducive at all to be in the same position for 8 hours a day at a desk. I didn't find that was very conducive to me. So for someone in that position who's call it a little bit chaotic and jumping around, again, do you take it back to the systems and the routines of it?
Yeah, I was about to ask if there was a way where you could systematize the variety. So instead of saying, okay, I go to work at this time and then I press this button over and over for 8 hours. How about because the thing that I'm about to say now is what I personally do and I know a lot of other people are doing is okay, so for this first hour of the day, this is what I'm doing. And then for the next hour, this is what I'm doing. And then I have a walk in nature. And then this is what I'm doing. And then I have lunch with either myself or someone I care about. And then this is what I'm doing. And all the things I kind of plan in there, many of them are different. So maybe 1 hour is talking to clients, another hour is maybe reaching out to podcast hosts like yourself and see if we can um, work together, and the third hour might be something else. And so everything is dialed in, everything is systematical, and everything is optimal in the sense that I understand when I do this thing from 8 to 9, for example, I know this is the intention of it. I'm trying to get X result. And this activity here is the number one possible thing in the entire world that I can do that will give me X result, whether that is a business specific result or it's something else. And then obviously this kind of hour of work where I'm doing the number one thing with the desired result. This hour I can then optimize and optimize and optimize and optimize because maybe I'll see, okay, I can actually probably do this in 50 minutes if I
Mm.
do this instead. Or maybe this part of the 1 hour workflow or whatever, or the 1 hour work block could be optimized in that way, this way. And now we're back to what you said. Once you have things kind of written down on paper, you can optimize and tweak and improve. And so it's really beautiful. I'll have these work blocks that are different from each other, and I can just optimize each of them and yeah, I really like it. And so you're gonna have, I think, systematized variety. Yeah.
That's cool. The block, looking at it in blocks in terms, and then when you've finished one block, being cool, moving into the next, like
Mhm.
you've done that block, as opposed to things kind of floating again, or yeah, being cool. And then, as you say, working within that small space of time or whatever, and optimizing that.
Absolutely. And also I would encourage you, you probably have done this already, but to people in your situation where it's very clear to you that you like the variety, you could really dive deep into that and say why. Well,
Mhm.
it's for an increase in stimuli. I don't get bored. Okay, why? And then just ask yourself why over and over again until eventually you understand, okay, this is actually this thing right here that makes it so that I thrive in a workflow that is more varied than this. And then maybe perhaps this thing that really is the important thing for you, maybe you can just, sprinkle that on whatever workflow you end up having so you know you have that thing. So yeah.
That why is important. Yeah, that why is so important, stripping it down. But it's actually funny listening to what you're saying, because it almost feels like procrastination, but I don't call it procrastination because I procrastinate by jumping onto another project. So it's like, I think that's an effect, if there's such a thing as effective procrastination, because I'm actually just moving to another pro. If I was procrastinating by going and sitting on the couch and like
Mm.
numbing, so I don't know if it falls into the procrastination thing, but it's just, yeah, this need to keep moving on different
Yeah.
things. But
Yeah, I would say maybe it's kind of in the middle, between, because obviously it's way, way better than going on the couch and just, punishing a bag of potato chips or something like that. Obviously. I do think though, for me, I used to struggle with for a bunch of years with this kind of productive procrastination, which was I would do things that would give me the same kind of mental rewards
mm,
as truly working, but it wasn't really moving the needle. I'm not saying that's your case, but for me, what would happen was I would have to work on something in my business that was important, it was crucial, but then I would maybe read 20 articles on Facebook marketing, even though I wasn't, in any way about to do in Facebook marketing. I just figured, well, it's marketing, and maybe in the future I'll do Facebook marketing, and so it's good for me to learn. And so me studying that gave me the same kind of feeling of progress and work and productivity as doing the thing I was supposed to be doing would give me. But this other thing here was just way easier, and it wasn't as overwhelming, it
mm.
wasn't as scary. And so I did that as well. And so then sometimes I could have maybe a work day. Or a work day, right? It was maybe 8 hours where I was working and felt like I was working for 8 hours. But really only 90 minutes of that was something that moved my business forward. And so, yeah, as long as we're kind of wary of that.
Yeah, it's taking a realistic look at what's actually moving things forward, being honest about the stuff. Um, like you say, getting to the why of things all the way back. No, that's very cool. It's a tradition on the show to have guests offer some kind of challenge to listeners. It can be anything. There's been so many cool and such a wide range of little things that can make a big difference to our lives. Is there anything that has helped you or that jumps out that you could offer listeners to try just in on a daily basis?
Yeah, so I think let's do this as an extension as to what we were already talking about. I think something that has really, really helped me a lot is asking me the tough question of, is this the number one thing I could be doing right now? It's not, is this productive or is this useful? Because, I mean, there are things I could do right now that would be useful, but it would be maybe a hundredth as useful as this other thing I could be doing. So I would encourage the listeners here to try for a week whenever you're doing something, whether that is, going to the gym or it's working, especially with work, ask yourself, okay, what's the intention of this right now? What's the the thing in my life that I'm trying to improve with this activity, and then follow that up with, is this the number one activity that I could possibly be doing for this result right now? So sometimes when people are scrolling on social media for 3 hours, if you ask them, why are you doing that? Well, I need to relax. I'm doing it to relax. Okay, is that the number one way that you could be relaxing? Because you could also be going for a walk in nature. You could also be meditating. You could also be listening to some piano. It would probably relax you more in 20 minutes than 3 hours of social media would do. And the same thing if I'm um, you know, at work, and you can do this whether you're a business owner or an entrepreneur, but also at all the jobs I've ever worked at, this would have worked great. I just didn't, know the tool back then. But ask yourself, okay, why am I doing this? And is this the number one thing? There's nothing else I could be doing right now that would move me forward faster or more effectively than this activity right here. And if the answer is not no, and this is going to sound a little bit harsh, this is going to be, but for me personally, my kind of rule of thumb is if I'm not working, and this is when I'm working in my business, if I'm not working on my number one bottleneck and I'm not doing the number one thing that alleviates that bottleneck, then I'm not working. Because if I'm not doing that, then I'm doing something else, and I'm doing that because it's easier or it caught my attention and pulled me away. If I'm not doing the number one thing to solve the number one problem, then I'm not working. And I know that's harsh, and it's take it with a grain of salt, but that's what works for me.
No, absolutely. I think there's real clarity in that, being brutally honest about it. And it doesn't matter what the activity, like you say, you can still question for whatever activity is that like the number one thing. And again, it's cliche, but I just think, time is so precious, and it's just more about time, how are we kind of maximizing use of time, because that's
Yes.
time can just escape you. Even if you're a room by yourself, people are still going to try and get your time, and it's so easy to give it away.
Yes, and what I'm sure will happen, because this is what has happened to me and other people I've shared this technique with, is they will have a very similar experience to the experience that you had with your calories. You'll go, oh no, I know where my calories come from. I understand how much I eat. Yeah, but did you track it? No, no, no. But I know. And then you track it and you're like, okay, that's not at all how I pictured it. And this is what will happen when you ask yourself, is this the number one thing? Because when you start doing it at first, almost every single time you ask yourself that question, it'll be like, no, it's not.
Mm, for sure. So was that how you got huge benefit in fitness, was by tracking like calorie intake and outtake? I don't know a lot about that kind of space, but was that really effective for you to track the actual calories?
Yeah, yeah, I would say yes. So first of all, I'd like to say that in anything, I believe that the first maybe 95% of the benefits require the same amount of effort as the last 5%. So what I mean by that is the first 95% of benefits from like building muscle and stuff like that is from eating a lot of food and working hard and all these things. And then the last five is where you go in and you really like tweak your macros, you optimize for the perfect supplements, and you do all these things. So for me, I've never really wanted to compete or anything. I just wanted to have a great, healthy body. And so I haven't like always completely 100% optimized for 100%, but I have certainly throughout time um been counting calories and counting, you know, even more importantly than calories, like how much protein, how much, et cetera, et cetera. And I think it's helpful. I think definitely it's a helpful thing. Once again, the more clarity you have on what you do. So I've all the time I've been in weightlifting, which would be maybe 8 years now, I have had a program, so I know exactly which days am I going there. I know which exercises I'm doing. I know how many sets of those exercises. I know how many reps I'm aiming for each of those sets. And I understand how much rest I have between each, and I know for how long I'm there. And and I just know that. So that's pretty dialed in. And then with the diet, it's just yeah,
That's
it's
also, it comes full circle back to what you're saying earlier. When you know that, it just alleviates the decision making, because
hmm
going to the gym is almost sometimes hard enough just to get yourself in the door. When you're fighting that already, like you say, when you alleviate all that decision making, sometimes when I'm even in the gym, I'm walking around going, what should I do? And I realize that there's not enough of a system there.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, it might sound a bit tedious to people to track everything, but it actually frees you up.
Exactly. Yeah, it's so freeing because it just takes away all of the decision making. And I realized I gave a little bit of a vague answer on the diet. I think the reason I did that was because I'm more so focused on the kind of food that I'm eating. Because for me, and this is different for person to person. For me, if I eat good quality foods, so I call them one ingredient foods, so not a bunch of stuff that's mixed together by some scientist in a lab, but it's like real food. If I eat that, I can eat all day, every day, and it's gonna be pretty easy to kind of hit where I want to be. So I don't really want to work with clients and stuff like that. I don't really tell them uh, this is how many calories unless I feel like that is something that would be helpful. Then obviously we'll do it. But a lot of times it's more like let's see if we can eat less of this because it drains your energy, it builds inflammation, all these things, brain fog, and see if we can do a little bit more of this because it has, you know, yeah.
Yeah, cool. How important is the intuitive and instinctual voice to you? Are you big do you meditate? Do you try and I'm just a big advocate for like intuition and instinct, and I try to look at it in a more practical way. I think we said it earlier. You have something sort of poking at you to go in that direction. Is that something you try and listen to?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I would say so. And I do meditate. I try to do it on a daily basis. Sometimes I'll do it twice. Sometimes I miss one because it's But usually, like I said, if something is important to me, there's a system behind it, and that's the same for meditation. I've been playing around a little bit with when I do it and for how long and stuff like that. And that's the beauty of these systems. Once again, you can tweak them and you can optimize them and stuff like that. But yeah, I love meditation. I feel so powerful. I feel like I have kind of been disconnected from everything thought and feeling. I've my entire life I felt as though I am my thoughts and my feelings,
Mm.
right? And after I started meditating, I am now an observer of my thoughts and feelings. So the example or the analogy that I was presented with was imagine there's a waterfall and the water is just falling down and you're behind the waterfall. You're in a little cave or whatever, and you can just see the water just run down in front of you. You are not the water. You are someone in a cave looking at the water. And that's how I now see my thoughts and emotions. So if I get angry right now, I'm not just gonna flip the table. It's more so that I realize, oh, I got angry there. Why is that? I observe that I feel anger, or I observe that I feel scared, or I observe that I just took a hit ego-wise because that person said this. Well, that's interesting, but I'm more of a observer now. I think that's really powerful.
The observer is huge, and it's such a simple concept, but sometimes it's often tricky to grasp. But the waterfall analogy is cool too. But mine was actually similar in a way. It was being under the water and observing the what was going on the surface, and
Mm-hmm.
also like if the surface was rougher or calmer, and just trying to watch it from underneath. But it's the same. Sit in the cave, watch the waterfall, or sit at the bottom of the ocean, watch the top. Um, I try not, it can sound a bit airy fairy to people, but this observation is what can take you out of purely reacting all the time to thoughts and feelings, like you say, and be this awareness. And it always just comes back to an awareness, I think, of whatever it is we're trying to do. Again, with everything you're saying, the kind of systemizing, it's bringing an awareness
Mm-hmm.
to patterns, and then you're able to observe and change and optimize things.
Absolutely. And I would like to say to every listener right now that goes, oof, that gets a little bit too woo for me. I promise, I'm with you. I was like that for my entire life. I feel like it becomes very abstract for me when people talk about meditation, etc. But I was like, look, everyone I've ever looked up to and respected, whether that was in business or in life, they all do it and they all recommend it. So I'll give it a try. And I just very, very quickly felt the difference. And also now when I have a lot of friends that are like academics or scientists and stuff like that, and then if they get too, if they start feeling like I'm too woo-woo, I'll just send them all the data, all the studies on how you actually develop a bunch of gray matter and all these things by doing it. So the science is very much on our side there. So it's just a powerful thing to do.
Cool. This is random question, but what's a recent like movie or series you've seen that's impacted you or sort of inspired you?
So I've watched it recently because I watched it over and over again, but I didn't watch it for the first time recently. It's my favorite movie, and it is Good Will Hunting.
Ah,
And
awesome.
the reason for that is when I grew up, I always knew I was different. I always knew I had a different mind. I didn't really know if it was good or bad. I just knew that I was in some ways an outsider, and I had some feeling that I had some kind of potential. I first of all, I'd taken a bunch of IQ tests and stuff like that, and I felt like, okay, wow, but also I just felt like I had something in me that I was gonna do great things, but I just wasn't really. I don't know. I just felt like I wasn't doing as much as I could, and I still sometimes can feel that, but it's very rare compared to back then because I um. But yeah, so anyway, so that's those scenes, and for those who haven't seen it, the movie is about a young man who has an insane IQ, and he's kind of wasting it. Um, and yeah, man, that scene, they're at the car, and his friend is telling him, man, if you don't, if you don't use this for something, if you don't actually go out there, and he goes, well, why is everyone saying that I deserve or and I owe it to myself to use this gift? And he says, no, F you. You don't owe it to yourself. You owe it to the rest of us that would love to have that potential. We would love to be able to do big things, and we can't, but you can, and you don't do anything with it. Anyway, I ball my ass out every time.
That's so that's so cool, man. That's all.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I asked the question because like I too with movies and stuff, I look for the relatable. I'm always like um looking for the relatable. So it sounds like it really hit home with you. And when I think of that movie, I think what inspires me is actually the Ben Affleck, Matt Damon writing that thing themselves and creating their own path in Hollywood. So that for me, the movie resonates from a like behind the scenes sense because
Mm,
those two guys, well, they had exactly what you're saying. They had this potential. They didn't know what to do with it. They took it into their own hands, wrote and made the thing and starred in it. And like, that propelled their entire careers. So it's an epic one. I'm glad you mentioned it. I got to check it out again. It's awesome when movies can do that.
yeah, absolutely. And kudos to those guys. I don't remember if they were like 20 or 22 or something when they made it, but that was, yeah, incredible.
Yeah, I'm really really inspired by particularly entrepreneurial people in entertainment and stuff who like I'm very much like how can you take this into your own hands, rather
Hmm.
than waiting. I spend a lot of time thinking, oh, you wait and the thing will come, but it ain't coming. Like you just how do you take this into your own hands?
Yeah,
Cool.
100%. And I think that's a very powerful note is as much as you can possibly take control over, the better. Like I've sometimes been told that, then I don't think you should take the blame for that. I'm not necessarily the blame I'm taking. I'm just taking the responsibility. That's a very important distinction, right? You can not be at fault, and it's still your responsibility, right? Like if someone
Mm,
throws an egg at your window, it's not your fault there's an egg on your window, but it's your responsibility to clean it because if you don't, so many things in life, some things are your fault, some things aren't, but the more things you can say, okay, I can control this, or I can at least do my best in this situation, and the more you can kind of focus on what you can do, I just think that's very powerful.
for sure. Where can people find you?
Yeah, so I actually just started a new Instagram that I will be focusing a lot more on. So for many, many years, I've kind of been hiding behind my company brand, so my website and all of that. But I'm looking to go, sh shift that to a more personal brand. And so I built an Instagram account. It's called I am Daniel Hauge. And on there, I will post daily on everything high performance, energy optimization, reducing stress, overwhelm, procrastination, stuff like that. There will also be a bunch of free stuff, it'll be a free PDF. And if any of you want, you can always send me a message. You can let me know that you saw me on here if you want to, and you can ask me a question. I'll be happy to answer. So yeah, that's Instagram at I am Daniel Hauge.
I understand the challenge of bringing the personal into it because it seems so simple. How do we just be ourselves? But it's yeah, it seems simple, but it's a tricky thing. Like to just do it, just do you, you know?
Yeah, and I think also that was maybe a little bit of fear or insecurity or whatever, because if all my ads are just a picture of an ebook and on my website is just a website, then it's there's nothing to be scared of. But if it's me on the videos and
Mm.
it's me in all the photos and it's me, but I'm ready for it now, and I'm going hard on the personal thing here in 2024 and forward.
Yeah, awesome, man. It's a bold move. I believe the personal element is, is absolutely the way to go, So yeah, great stuff. But it's been awesome talking to you. We covered quite a lot there in a short amount of time, so I really appreciate it.
Yeah, man, me too. This was great. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for tuning in. If you have a guest suggestion, please reach out on my website at danthomas.net. I am also on social media at Mr. Dan Thomas. Catch you on the next episode.